Hello again, Steve here, and today I wanted to talk a little bit about the British election, which has happened here on the 12th of December 2019. And I would call this a Brexit election, of course, as many people would. It was like a second referendum on Brexit. Now, from what I can see here in these early hours of this going on, its exit polls are just being closed up, I guess, and it appears as though it's an overwhelming win for the Conservative Party and a devastation blowout for the Labour Party. Everybody else is sort of in who knows elsewhere, but basically, majority means that the Conservative parties, all their seats that they got, are more than everybody else combined, the Liberal Democrats, the various different parties, and the Labour, right? Which means that there's a huge mandate at that point for the Prime Minister, because in that system, which is similar to Canada's system, the Prime Minister is basically an elected dictator, if it's a majority, because he can use the whip to whip people. You know, that's what it comes from, I guess, is one time maybe they used to actually whip people, but actually compel the people in his party to vote his will, essentially. So if he puts forward and says, okay, we're going to vote to leave the EU, anybody who doesn't vote for me is thrown out of the party forthwith, kind of thing. That's my understanding of it anyways. Correct me if I'm wrong here. Now, there's a couple of comments I wanted to make on this. One of which, by now, very few people will know who this is, but you can look him up. Dean Clifford is right again, which is that politicians change for the will of the people. I mean, that's nothing new, but I heard him say something along that line before, and he said beware of it, because, socialism was moving and moving and moving and moving in this way. I guess it's left, isn't it? Was moving towards the left because that's what people wanted. I mean, you had the hippies of the 60s, and they created all this love beads and meditation, and people thought that hey, you know what, stealing people's money was a good idea and giving it to people who don't have. And it just, it doesn't work. It's never worked when it's been tried. So all the destruction that has wrought has caused a gradual movement in the other direction towards the right. That's what we're seeing happening now, is the reassertion of the drift away from globalism towards nationalism, the drift away from socialism towards individualism, the drift away from irresponsibility to responsibility, the drift away from feminism to masculinity. All those sorts of things are a natural reaction, because actually evolution is amazingly slow. And in societal evolutions, you have this drift, of course, towards one direction, and the result is you have to have a drift back in some way to balance it out. Otherwise, we go off a cliff as a society. So, yeah, I hope that one of the people that I admire on the internet is this guy, Stefan Molyneux. And for years, he talked about, it's not about stopping the inevitable crashes and so on that will come in the future. It's about whether or not we're going to have a wheels down landing, right? And that's the analogy of a plane is going down, you lost your engine and so on, but at least if you can find a runway and get your wheels down, manually crank them down or something, you don't have to smash on the runway, basically. And this is maybe what the world is seeing now, this attempt to get the wheels down, to have somewhat more saner people running the show, rather than just electing so-called conservatives like Theresa May to represent a Brexit deal when she's actually a Remainer. Now, I don't know what Boris Johnson is. I do know that it was kind of funny a few years ago. That I don't know, very few people will remember this probably, but you can look it up, I think. And Trump, he flies, he speaks what he's thinking at times, I think. And he was at some sort of an event in England. He was invited to England, and he happened to mention that he thought Boris Johnson would make a good prime minister. That's when this Theresa May was still prime minister. But that was several years ago, and people say that Trump is stupid, but I mean, who, who's got egg on their face now? It's not him. Anyways, not only is he prime minister, but he might be able to deliver Brexit. However, I would say that look for a new round of propaganda and obfuscation and all kinds of stuff. There's not. I'd be very surprised if Boris Johnson goes for a clean break. I suspect there's a little bit of opportunism in there, and he's happy to be prime minister. He's happy to make a big win and so on. But he's going to try to appease a bunch of people. He's going to try to appease a bunch of his billionaire donors and so on in the EU, and he's going to try to deliver some sort of a deal. I mean, to hell with a deal, man. Just get the hell out, is what I would say. But what do I know? Anyway, perhaps England is one step closer to Brexit. I don't know. I mean, after all, people in England voted before to leave, and they didn't leave. How many years? That happened in, what was it, 2016, I guess it was. They voted to leave. That's more than 3 years ago. It's going on 4 years. They voted to leave the EU. They haven't left the EU. Now they basically voted again. Let's see, right? I mean, it's harder and harder to make the case that the British people don't want to leave, but you can see that the government is not there for the people. Because of all this time, they said we want to leave, and they're not leaving. Well, the government is obviously not there to serve the people. It's all just a fantasy. And that's what I've been talking about on this channel for a long time, right? I mean, because countries are basically tax farms. The farmer is not there to serve the animals. The farmer will take care of the animals because the animals are producing for him. But he's not there fundamentally to serve the animals. He's there to serve himself and to get rich off the animals, to make money off the animals. That's what politicians are there for. They're not there to serve the people. They're there to serve themselves and to enrich themselves off the people. And so whatever benefit that if somehow Brexit is profitable for them, that's what they'll campaign for probably. But they probably get bigger donations by somehow staying in. But it's getting more and more difficult, because I think now that these politicians are starting to see that, hey, maybe these people are not going to put up with us much longer. But you can see that the politicians are more and more and more listening. At least they appear to be listening. Because they're crafty little buggers, aren't they? They appear to be listening at least to the people. We'll see what happens. We'll see what happens. I suspect there will be a Brexit, but it'll just be some kind of a deal Brexit where England has to pay a bunch of money to the EU and be compelled, and will sign up to a bunch of compelling regulations that they have no vote on. So that might sound a little bit pessimistic, but hey, basically, I see a drift towards to the right, to greater freedom, of course, because whenever you have more responsibility, there's greater freedom. Whenever you have a drift towards masculinity, there's more freedom. Whenever you have a drift towards free speech and greater levels of sovereignty. I mean, a country does not make its subjects sovereign, but it's more sovereign than a globalist, who knows who's running it kind of an organization. The closer we can get to community, down to the village, down to the individual, the better. So yeah, nation is better than international. So bravo to the British for voting for greater levels of freedom. Steve here again, great chatting. If you like what I'm doing, please like, subscribe, and share, and we'll talk again soon. Bye for now.